Hello, my name is Danielle, you are watching Anime, and today we're going to be talking about the 10 things that I hate about figure collecting. Okay, quick disclaimer, the reason why I'm not making a things I love about anime figure collecting first is because some of those reasons are a little more personal to me, and I'm just not sure about how I'd want to go about doing the video because of that, so I'm just kind of like procrastinating. And instead, the reason why I'm making a 10 things I hate about figure collecting is because a lot of these are actually petty nitpicks and I don't actually care that much about them, or I understand why they are the way they are. So I'm not actually mad about any of this. This is all just for the fun of a video. And I hope you can all have fun with me on this journey of complaining, because who doesn't love complaining? So number one of things that I do not like. Some series have a lot of figures, other series not so much. So for example, if you take One Piece versus Bleach, they were both part of the big three. During the time that they were both running, there was a lot of One Piece figures coming out, whereas there's not as many Bleach figures coming out. And I'm not personally a fan of Bleach anyways, so it doesn't really matter. But if you are a fan of Bleach, you're out of luck. In a more extreme example, some shows have a lot of figures like Re:Zero, whereas other shows have absolutely none at all, like Samurai Champloo or Violet Evergarden. In the same vein as this, some series they'll have a lot of one character and then barely any of the others. So for example, in the Fate franchise, if you like Saber, you've got lots of options to go for. She's always got figures coming out of her. But if you like Rin or Sakura, you just are a lot more limited in what you can buy. They just come out a lot less often, they don't have as many variations, so you're just kind of on the losing end on that. In a more extreme example, there could be Fairy Tail, where they have a lot less figures and most of them are of Lucy or Erza, and a lot of them are not great. But if you say like Juvia, then you're kind of out of luck. She has one or two figures and one of those is the Beeful figure, and we don't count Beeful. And obviously I understand why these are the way they are. They're gonna prioritize the figures or the characters in the series that are actually going to sell. That's capitalism, baby. So number two is the money. Hear me out now, I am not talking about the price of the figures themselves. Not only do anime figures come in a wide variety of prices with some really nice looking prize figures for cheap, to the pop-up parades that have been really great lately. Nendroids, Figmas are all a decent price, and I actually do understand why scale figures are so expensive. I'm actually going to link an article down below by Solaris Japan detailing how figures are made, and the title of it is literally why anime figures are so expensive. I read it and I was like, yeah, okay, I see that. I understand it, I respect it. But what I am talking about are the extra costs associated with anime figure collecting. So for example, I live in Canada, where the shipping to get everything here is extremely expensive. Especially though from Japan. I primarily buy off of AmiAmi, and I actually could have done a anime figure haul this week, but I had two options for the package that it would have been. The first option was Surface, which was $40 Canadian, which is a fair chunk in itself. The second option was DHL, which was $180 Canadian, which is not as great. So I picked Surface, and I will be getting that package in a couple of months instead. But you can just see how that shipping very quickly adds up. Yes, we can get into a whole thing about buying locally and those kinds of options, but I'm not gonna get into that now because I just feel like it would bore you. So we're gonna skip past that. So apart from shipping as well, you have the more optional but kind of not expenses. So for example, if you're gonna grow your collection past the space you already have to display it, you're gonna have to eventually get more shelving or detolfs. Those are all gonna be an extra cost. As well, if say, for example, you really like the Nendroid easel stands, that's gonna be an extra cost as well. I only needed to buy maybe $30 worth of them, but if you have a lot of Nendroids and you wanna have most of them with easel stands, that's gonna add up eventually. And it's just those extra costs on top of what you are already spending that adds a little bitterness, I guess. So the third thing that I wanna talk about is something that I experience as a Canadian, and you might possibly experience depending on your currency's exchange rate. You typically buy items, figure collecting items, in yen. USD or in euros are resold a lot on my figure collection. The issue is when you actually convert it to Canadian, the price goes up, in that if you spend 10,000 yen and you are a US citizen, you are going to have the price drop to $93. But if you spend 10,000 yen as a Canadian, the price is gonna rise to $112, right? And I'm not gonna get into the whole intricacies of currency exchange. I don't know enough to say that, but what I do know enough to say is every time I go to cart and check out, the price is a lot higher than what is originally shown. So number 4 is something that is purely user error. I've come to the conclusion that maybe I'm just projecting, but if you've been collecting figures long enough, you are eventually gonna drop one or two. Whether you are just knocking it over, whether it is falling from a high place, or you are holding it and it drops, whether there is no damage at all, a scratch, or it actually breaks, it is just a terrible feeling when it happens, and it is definitely something that I'm guilty of. Oh my god! That's fun. Oh, she fell off. Oh no. Are you kidding? An Android easel stands. So, for example, oh my god. Anyways. I just do not like that moment when it drops and you just are a little disappointed in yourself. Number 5 is having to store and keep all of the boxes, and I think the plastic, or else the price of the figure to resell it drops a lot. So that kind of pressure to keep everything really takes up a lot of space in your closet, and takes up a lot of space in my closet personally. It's getting a little stressful, if you want me to be honest. In the same vein of this, having to store the extra pieces that comes with the figures is also kind of a lot. So for example, Nendroids have a lot of extra pieces, but as well, do not underestimate having to store scale figure extra pieces. I learned the hard way not to keep them in the boxes, because if you ever need to go through the boxes to get them out again, it is just an absolute pain. I keep mine all in little baggies in a little drawer in my closet, and it is definitely being filled up a lot, especially the big pieces that just take up a lot of room, like the torso from my Saber Altar figure or the extra pieces from my Lofi figure. Also, again, I realize this is technically my fault for just like over consuming anime figures, but it's a very addicting hobby, okay? Number 6. The assembly of figures. It can be such a stressful experience, it's almost ridiculous. Some are easy, others are not so much. And when it's not easy, it's extremely stressful because you actually run the risk of breaking the figure, which is not something you want to do with a brand new or even non-brand new figure that you're just very excited to own. One of the most stressful experiences I had was with my Yai Sakura figure. The clear plastic piece was actually not fitting into the base. I actually ended up having to shave it down, and it was just such a stressful experience. So that process between getting the figure, being excited, and actually having the beautiful piece of art on your shelf can sometimes not be very fun. Number 7. Buying a figure and then seeing it for a better price. The prices of figures very much vary depending on the time and the popularity or rarity of the figure. I don't really know what goes into all of the deciding factors, of course, but something that happens often, and it's happened to me quite a few times, is I buy a figure and then a little while later I see it for a decently better price. Yes, I've talked about this 100 times before. For example, my Saber Altar figure, I got her for her aftermarket price before she was released for 23,000 yen. And then a couple months later, I saw that they were re-releasing her for 16,000 yen, I believe. Anyways, that was not fun. Another figure this happened with was my Lily Wine figure. I got her pre-owned for, I believe, 17,000 yen. And then literally a week or two later, I saw that Ami had just restocked her for 12 to 14,000 yen. So I missed out on that as well. And it's one of those things where you're just happy you have it. And at the same time, you're just a little bitter that you didn't get that better price. Number 8 is the same idea as number 7, except on the flip side. Sometimes you see a figure for a good price and you can't afford it at that moment, and it sucks because you know it might go up in price later on. For example, maybe you can't afford the pre-order and you're gonna have to wait for it to be released. But a lot of the times when it's released, the price goes up, so you know you're just passing up a good price that you might not possibly be able to get again. Now, again, I have not been collecting long enough to say for sure a figure's price is gonna go up after release. This is the pattern that I've seen so far, but I will not say for concrete that that will happen. So please do not rush and buy things if you cannot afford those things. I try not to do that as well. Which brings up my next point of this, which sometimes I do see a figure for a good price. Maybe it's on sale, maybe it's pre-owned, and I still have to pass up that figure because I just know that I cannot afford it at the moment. And knowing that I might not be able to get this price again is a little bit bitter of a feeling of having to pass that up. But sometimes it's just what you gotta do. Sometimes you can't even afford it at the good price, much less the aftermarket value, and you just have to admit that to yourself and put it aside. So number 9, fixing broken figures. Now, I actually thought about this one about an hour ago because I had 9 points before this and I wanted to make this a top 10 list. But it's really tragic when an anime figure has a broken piece. And the thing is, I'm just too lazy to fix that. So it just breaks and stays like that. So maybe we should change this to having figures with broken pieces. Because, you know, it sucks when it's broken because, you know, you really love these things. You don't want them to be broken. But also having to fix them, it just seems like a lot to me. And if you're like, it's actually really easy, no, that's still a lot to me. My 2013 Racing Muku had a jewel come off and it just permanently stays on its base. Every time I move it around, I just have to make sure the jewel doesn't get lost. Yeah, I could fix it. I'm sure I could get glue and fix it, but that seems like a lot of work, you know? And my Aceriolian Good Smile Company figure, I actually broke its base, the chair, like literally last year, and I still haven't fixed it. Instead, I just put it in the closet and I was like, nice, awesome. My Lucy Pop-Up Parade, the key she's holding is literally hanging on by a thread and I'm just not moving it instead of finding a way to fix it and hoping for the best, basically. So we're gonna say this is number 9, having figures with broken pieces, because then it feels like homework that's never gonna get done. So number 10 is that figure collecting is not a widely accepted hobby, and it's also difficult to find people in your day-to-day life who are also interested in it, which is a little bit isolating as well. Obviously, it depends on everyone's unique situation. Maybe you have people in your life who are also interested in it and you can talk to and are excited to talk about it, and maybe you don't have anybody at all. Maybe you have people who are accepting and happy or neutral towards the hobby, and maybe you have people who throw disdain at you and judgments, which is also very difficult. I personally don't have anyone in my day-to-day life who I can truly talk about figure collecting with. However, I'm lucky enough to have a family and friends that are either neutral or accepting about the fact that I'm in this hobby. But I don't think that we can deny the fact that this isn't a neutral hobby in a lot of people's eyes, and it's either unnoticed and uncared for or just completely judged. But also it's because of that it's so great that we were able to create a community online. And so with that said, I wanted to say thank you so much for engaging with my content at all, for engaging within the community online where we can all kind of come together and enjoy figure collecting. I wanted to say thank you to all of the previous creators who were making content before I was. It's because of you guys that I realized that I could reach out and find a community online this way. I want to say thank you to all of the creators who made videos about figure collecting after I started. It's because of you guys that it really feels like the community is growing and turning into a bigger thing than it was. And this is just my sappy way of saying thank you guys so much for everything. I really, really appreciate it. And while we're on thank yous as well, thank you so much to Dave and Jose for buying me a beer. That was super, super nice of you. Thank you for watching this video. If you subscribed, thank you for subscribing, of course. And I have a Twitter, Instagram, Discord if you want to check those out. Only if you want to, of course. And now that we're done all of that, I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.